Educate Philippines recognizes that Filipinos highly value education. As a matter of fact, education is a non-negotiable aspect of our culture. Parents always prioritize their children's education above other things. Teachers dedicate their lives to imparting knowledge to the students the best way they can. Students demand relevant knowledge for their academic and professional success to enable them to contribute to national and global development. It is for these reasons that Educate Philippines offers its services to academic institutions in the Philippines to provide the right technology to teach and learn online. Educate Philippines exists to tackle the lack of LMS in institutions of basic and higher learning and the problem in connecting the teachers and students to the internet.
To succeed today, organizations need to adapt and evolve with new skills and capabilities, from machine learning to design thinking, blockchain to business skills. And the need is massive. 74% of organizations know that reskilling their workforce is important in the next 12 to 18 months, but only 10% feel ready to address this trend. At Skillsoft, our goal is to democratize learning. So we set out to create a new kind of platform based on a fundamental belief that every person has the potential to be amazing. The result? A digital learning platform driven by flexibility and personalization. It's powered by AI, but has people at its heart. Skillsoft Percipio helps learners accomplish goals, celebrate their journey, and unleash their edge. How does Percipio do it? It's all about the journey. Aspire Journeys are pre-curated, role-based, and skill-based learning paths that help companies prepare employees for the high-demand roles needed today and tomorrow, like agile development, data science, cloud computing, and leadership development. AI makes it easy. Breadth of content is great, but you need curation and customization to make it useful. Our AI-driven homepage keeps things fresh, engaging, and relevant for each and every learner. Search in human speak. Percipio's search functionality uses Google BERT natural language processing AI, which means learners spend more time learning and less time searching. Badge Up. Learners celebrate, record, and socialize their achievements with verifiable digital badges that are theirs to keep. Over 5 million earned and counting. Seamless experience everywhere. Percipio lets users learn in whatever increment they have time for, bouncing between media formats, devices, and collaboration tools like MS Teams seamlessly, without losing track or progress along the way. They can even learn while in the flow of work with our embedded learning synchronized assistant, ELSA for short. Customization and integration. Administrators can customize learning tracks, host content from other providers, and integrate into any LMS. We make it easy to make it your own. Our users already love the results they're getting from Percipio. And that's just the beginning. As the market evolves, so will Precipio, with more capabilities, more integration, and more ease of use with every iteration. Each step brings us that much closer to our mission, to democratize learning and help organizations, teams, and individuals unleash their edge.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to talk about Educate. If you don't know what Educate is, well, it's a solution to the current educational problem here in the Philippines. It all started when the world got screwed over by the virus. No one was allowed to meet face-to-face. That includes classes. So Aldrin, the CEO of Educate, decided to develop a system that would help the Philippines with their educational problems. With his expertise working in Australia, he brought about Educate, a one-stop place for online learning to be a solution to the current problems of learners and educators. This includes a learning management system, hosting, maintenance, training, support, and many more to provide the right tools and expertise to make distance learning simple and easy. We believe that no Filipino students should be left behind. So what are you waiting for? We welcome you to the Educate family.
To succeed today, organizations need to adapt and evolve with new skills and capabilities, from machine learning to design thinking, blockchain to business skills. And the need is massive. 74% of organizations know that reskilling their workforce is important in the next 12 to 18 months, but only 10% feel ready to address this trend. At Skillsoft, our goal is to democratize learning. So we set out to create a new kind of platform based on a fundamental belief that every person has the potential to be amazing. The result? a digital learning platform driven by flexibility and personalization. It's powered by AI, but has people at its heart. Skillsoft Percipio helps learners accomplish goals, celebrate their journey, and unleash their edge. How does Percipio do it? It's all about the journey. Aspire Journeys are pre-curated, role-based, and skill-based learning paths that help companies prepare employees for the high-demand roles needed today and tomorrow, like agile development, data science, cloud computing, and leadership development. AI makes it easy. Breadth of content is great, but you need curation and customization to make it useful. Our AI-driven homepage keeps things fresh, engaging, and relevant for each and every learner. Search in human speak. Percipio's search functionality uses Google BERT natural language processing AI, which means learners spend more time learning and less time searching. Badge Up. Learners celebrate, record, and socialize their achievements with verifiable digital badges that are theirs to keep. Over 5 million earned and counting. Seamless experience everywhere. Percipio lets users learn in whatever increment they have time for, bouncing between media formats, devices, and collaboration tools like MS Teams seamlessly, without losing track or progress along the way. They can even learn while in the flow of work with our embedded learning synchronized assistant, ELSA for short. Customization and integration. Administrators can customize learning tracks, host content from other providers, and integrate into any LMS. We make it easy to make it your own. Our users already love the results they're getting from Percipio. And that's just the beginning. As the market evolves, so will Percipio, with more capabilities, more integration, and more ease of use with every iteration. Each step brings us that much closer to our mission, to democratize learning and help organizations, teams, and individuals unleash their edge.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm here to talk about Educate. If you don't know what Educate is, well, it's a solution to the current educational problem here in the Philippines. It all started when the world got screwed over by the virus. No one was allowed to meet face-to-face. That includes classes. So Aldrin, the CEO of Educate, decided to develop a system that would help the Philippines with their educational problems. With his expertise working in Australia, he brought about Educate, a one-stop place for online learning to be a solution to the current problems of learners and educators. This includes a learning management system, hosting, maintenance, training, support, and many more to provide the right tools and expertise to make distance learning simple and easy. We believe that no Filipino students should be left behind. So what are you waiting for? We welcome you to the Educate family.
morning, Dr. Gomez.
Morning!
Yes po, good morning po. We can start na po.
Okay, we can start. Good morning to all the viewers that we have, both on the Jitsi site and the YouTube site. How are you today? For starters, I have here a Mentimeter activity.
Dr. Gomez, my
Yes.
apologies. Kindly turn on your camera po.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. Sorry for that because I'm afraid to lose connection here. Okay, I will be turning on my camera. Okay. Here. I'm using a laptop, so magandang umaga po sa ating mga viewers. Before we start, I have here a Mentimeter activity. I believe that I shared the activity to the group application window. Naho, it won't work po. May I request someone po from the Jitsi team to help us from Educate to help me with the sharing of the screen because my share screen won't work. I have
And,
here a yes po. I have here a Mentimeter activity.
sige po. Just give
Yes po.
me one moment po.
Okay. So our discussion for today is very nice. It's very timely because we will be talking about mental health, and a lot of people are asking about how they could improve their mental health at this moment. And there are also some people who are asking me about what to do on distress tolerance and what to do for students who are at risk or who are displaying um, some suicidal behaviors. Now, for today, we will be discussing a lot of things about mental health, and we would be discussing some coping and distress tolerance skills in order for us to accommodate or help some students or children or ourselves if we have these emotional problems. And so, is the site on Mentimeter getting ready? I'm very sorry that I could not. We have an interactive activity before we start. So the first activity is entitled, How are you today? So you can answer, you can give 3 answers if you are a participant. The code for our Mentimeter activity, I have already, yan. There's the code. The code is 1606305. That is our Mentimeter code. You can enter that code and participate in our Mentimeter survey. I also have another survey, and this is for audience. Ayan, that's good. I can see people entering their responses. So we have here relax, excited, good. So other people can join and we'll check after the discussion if this has been filled in or not. There's another Mentimeter activity. I have two. The second Mentimeter would be what are your protective factors? And you could do that as you listen to the presentation. So I am happy that there are people who are joining in and who are typing in their responses. So without further ado, I can start with the discussion for today. I presented a pre-recorded discussion in order for me to stay online because I might lose connectivity. So let's go back to the Mentimeter activity later, but you can start filling in your responses. Okay, thank you very much. Can we start now? And I ask the team from Educate to start with the PowerPoint presentation because I don't want to waste any time. I know that there are a lot of questions to ask during the Q&A portion.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Gomez. Let me proceed now in presenting your recorded presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, a pleasant day to everyone. I'm going to talk about coping skills and distress tolerance skills to thrive in difficult situations. We are now all in a pandemic, and this is considered as a difficult situation. Today, you'll be learning some skills in order for you to thrive. Before I start my discussion on coping skills and distress tolerance, I would like to lay down the order of discussion for today's presentation. First, we will be defining mental health because everything will be discussed in the context of mental health. What comprises mental health concerns? We will also look at the models on mental health issues in order for us to lay a basis for our discussion on intervention. We will be talking about risk and protective factors, mental health issues in the context of COVID-19, and then we will be discussing the coping skills, the stress tolerance skills, and lastly, we will end up identifying some factors that are related to safety planning. Let's first define mental health. Mental health is more than the absence of mental disorders. It is an integral part of health, and the WHO says without mental health, there is no health at all. It is determined by a range of socioeconomic, biological, and environmental factors. Now that we have defined mental health, let's now look at indicators of mental health problems. First, you have subjective distress. The person can be subjected to a lot of problems, issues, and concerns, and this can be very overwhelming. There's maladaptiveness. For example, if you are required to go to work every day, a person with some mental health issues can skip work, not because he or she is lazy, but sometimes the emotional state won't just permit going to work. There's statistical deviancy. You're talking always about quote unquote normal behavior. And if you have studied statistics, you are familiar with the normal curve. Anyone who is not within the normal sample, quote unquote, or average sample, has statistical deviancy. Statistical deviancy, when it comes to mental health problems, would pertain to behaviors that are not common in a specific culture or population. There are violations in standards of society. For example, they can be committing a lot of crimes, and these are big time and organized crimes. There can be social discomfort. If, for example, you are with a person who has a mental health issue, you might not feel comfortable being with that person. There's irrationality and unpredictability. And lastly, there is dangerousness. These are some indicators that someone might be having mental health problems. Remember that when we talk about mental health disorders, we always consult the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders. We have the fifth edition right now. Or you can look at it based on the 4 Ds of psychopathology. What are these? There's deviance, dysfunction, distress, and danger. Yes, there's danger posed to the self or other people. From what has been discussed, mental health concerns are very complex. Usually, there is no single factor that predicts a mental health problem, particularly if it is already a disorder. When you talk about mental health and mental health disorders, you can look at various models. The first model is the biopsychosocial model. You will see here that there are biological factors, social and environmental factors, and psychological factors that contribute to mental health conditions. These factors interact. So you will see here that mental health disorders are very complex. You can also look at a public health model. This model is a prevention model and a curative model. Why is this so? You have here two spectrums. On the left, you have wellness, and on the right, you have illness. From wellness to illness, there could be disease developing in between. Public health addresses wellness issues. So, for example, you can give information, education, and communication materials to people who are healthy or without mental health issues or with some mental health issues. These materials can help them improve themselves and avoid illnesses or mental illnesses. Whereas, if you're talking about illnesses, and in this case, a person already has a mental illness, there is a need for medical intervention. So, for the public health model, it emphasizes that wellness is very much important, and we focus on this rather than curing the illness. In the long run, it would be cheaper to focus on wellness of specific populations. The public health model is a community approach to preventing and treating illness and promoting well being. It addresses treatment for individuals across the lifespan while developing interventions for the entire population. When you talk about mental health, there are protective factors and risk factors. So the WHO gives these mental health determinants. This is called from the WHO. So you have here individual attributes, social circumstances, and environmental factors. These can contribute to the well being or ill well being of a specific person. For example, risk factors could involve low self esteem, cognitive or emotional immaturity, difficulties in communicating, and medical illness or a history of substance use. Therefore, a person, in order for him or her to have good mental health, should enhance protective factors, such as if you have low self esteem, you build on self esteem and confidence. If there is cognitive or emotional maturity, enable the person to solve problems and manage stress or adversity. If there are difficulties in communication, communication skills and assertiveness skills might be taught. If there are medical illnesses or substance use, you can have fitness activities. You can also have refusal strategies in place, or you can place a person who is using substances into counseling or some form of rehabilitation. For social circumstances, you have here loneliness and bereavement. And during the time of the pandemic, there is a rise in these cases. Therefore, it's very necessary for a person to have social support. The social support of family and friends can mean a lot to a person who is lonely or is grieving. There's also neglect and family conflict versus good family interaction or good parenting. There can be exposure to violence or abuse versus physical security and safety. And the list goes on. Different feelings and reactions during COVID-19 are normal. You can see here that one person can experience different kinds of emotions, and this is normal because these are uncertain times. If you are feeling that you are alone in experiencing these kinds of emotions, think that the whole world is under the same condition. We are all in a pandemic, and there are a lot of people who are experiencing the same feelings and emotions as you do. COVID-19 brings forth psychosocial issues. There's social isolation because we are all locked down. There's fear of contagion. Of course, you would be afraid to go out and have this virus. There's job loss. And COVID-19 brings forth grief because people die because of the pandemic. There are also mental health issues in the context of COVID-19. These are anxiety, depression. It can be a trigger for schizophrenia. Some people might self harm. There is suicidality. And some people might experience phobias because they are so afraid that they will get this virus. When things get tough, it is natural for you to feel overwhelmed. But what happens if this persists? Remember that it's okay to feel overwhelmed every now and then. But if the feeling persists, there is now a problem happening. You would then resort to coping skills. When it comes to coping skills, you have helpful coping skills and unhelpful coping skills. What happens if one feels overwhelmed too much? What if the feeling of being overwhelmed goes overboard? These are some effects of having overwhelming emotions. These are emotions that could not be controlled. For example, you might spend a great deal of time thinking about past pains, mistakes, and problems. These things can regurgitate in your mind. You can ruminate over past pains, mistakes, and problems, and you would naturally feel upset when you continually think about them. You would feel sad, and you would feel very, very gloomy when you continually think about these past mistakes, problems, and pains. There's also worry about possible future pains, mistakes, and problems. Yes, future mistakes, pains, and problems. These things haven't happened yet. People who are being overwhelmed tend to catastrophize and they worry about a lot of possible pains that are not yet happening. And who knows, these pains might really not happen. Some people isolate themselves. They isolate themselves from other people and they avoid distressing situations. They would tell you that I don't want to feel the pain anymore and I don't want to see these people because they cause me a lot of distress. Some resort to substance use in order for them to feel numb. Substances give them a numbing sensation. For example, some people would tell you, I like the company of alcohol because alcohol understands me. Alcohol somewhat numbs the pain. Never mind if tomorrow I will have a hangover, I would drink again. And then some people lash out their feelings to other people by getting excessively angry or they try to control other people. There's also engagement in potentially harmful behaviors such as cutting, hitting, or burning the self. People resort to self harm behaviors. Some people also would avoid dealing with the problems. For example, if people are in a dysfunctional relationship, they would avoid that problem by continuously staying with a partner who's very abusive. Some people eat too much or too little or do not eat at all. There are people who attempt suicide or engage in very risky behaviors. There are people who take dangerous amounts of drugs and alcohol to the point that they reach the toxicity level already. There's avoidance of pleasant activities or anhedonia because people would think that they don't deserve any better. A lot of people who have overwhelming emotions just surrender to pain and they give up and they say that they will be living a miserable life. The result of unhelpful coping styles would be engagement in self destructive activities. This could include harm to self or harm to other people. That's why we should have good coping skills. Now we will be discussing about good coping skills. I would like to introduce you with an acronym called REST. Relax, evaluate, set an intention, and take action. Remember always that if you have a plan for a soothing activity, you should do it. You should enact on the plan. Have an intention to do a soothing activity and take action. Now let's identify some coping skills. What are the helpful ways of coping during the pandemic? First and foremost, this is recommended by the World Health Organization. The first thing that you have to do is to focus on the things that you can control. What are these? Wearing masks, eating healthy food, maintaining physical distance, staying at home, exercising, and hand washing. Of course, you can also wear face shields. These are the things that you can control. Why is it necessary to focus on the things that you can control during this pandemic? A lot of people are worried about getting sick, and there are people suffering from anxiety. Remember that the key feature for anxiety is worry. And these people with anxiety worry too much. Some of them even tell me, I'm a counselor and I have been helping out people affected by COVID 19. There are people who tell me that COVID will visit them in their dreams. They would tell me that COVID would enter their windows and they would dream about COVID infecting them. Sometimes they are very afraid to go out, or they would overdress in order for them to be protected by COVID. However, if you do not know the portals of entry and you do not know facts about COVID, chances are you are giving yourself too much stress. Therefore, it is best to number one, know how COVID is contracted, and number two, focus on the things that you can control. When you can focus on the things you can control, you can assure yourself that you will not contract the virus. These are things that you could do and you could focus on them. Next, if you feel anxious or you feel that your heart is pounding, you could focus on breathing exercises. Could also focus on guided imagery exercises or body scans. Remember that when you focus on breathing exercises, you follow a breathing plan. There are a lot of breathing exercises for anxiety on YouTube. Or you could download some of these apps used for breathing. There are a lot of free apps in both the Apple and Android markets. When things get rough, remain calm by doing soothing activities. When you say there's a soothing activity that I would do, you are referring to the five senses. So, what are these soothing activities? These are practical examples that you could do even at home. I drafted these exercises during the start of the pandemic, and I use these to help people overcome difficulties, particularly anxiety brought forth by the pandemic. If people are locked down, I teach them these activities. You can soothe with a sense of sight. Remember, when you are doing soothing activities, no gadgets. You should not use gadgets. You should focus on the soothing activity. You should not do multitasking, but instead, when you do soothing activities, you single task. What are the things that you could do to soothe the sense of sight? You could look at the sunrise or the sunset. When you look at the sunrise and the sunset, look at how the sun gets bigger or smaller. Look at the different colors. Look at the clouds. Look at how the clouds move while the sun is setting or rising. We can also notice the temperature. Is it becoming warmer or cooler? These are practical activities that you can do while looking at the sunset or sunrise. Let's have another example. For example, you are looking at pictures of books or ebooks, or you are visiting a virtual museum. What can you do to soothe the sense of sight? You have to single task, remember? So, what do? You look at the designs, look at the pictures, look at the colors, look at how the colors vary. Look at the hues. Look at how red is not just red, it has different shades of red. Look at the strokes. Look at the lines. Look at the images that these convey. This is how you appreciate books or virtual museums. You can also look at the surroundings from a window or enjoy the plants, trees, and flowers and other forms of nature. You can look at the stars in the sky, and you can notice that these stars are of different colors, of different shapes. Some twinkle brightly and some just twinkle. There are different types of stars. These are the things that you can do to soothe the sense of sight. Next, soothe with the sense of hearing. Listening to music, playing an instrument, humming a tune. You can also listen to the birds chirping during the morning. Or you can sing a song or listen to the radio. You can listen to your favorite songs. Music can create a soothing effect to us. So you can soothe with a sense of hearing when you are already stressed. You could soothe with the sense of smell. You could use your favorite shampoo and you can smell your shampoo or your cologne or your lotion. Allow yourself to be soothed when you are putting on lotion, cologne, or perfume. You can also smell coffee. For example, you like 3-in-1. Open the 3-in-1 pack and then savor the aroma of the coffee. When you are eating fruits, you can peel an orange or a dalandan and enjoy its scent inside the room. You could also, of course, breathe in the soothing breeze coming from your window. And when you're cooking, you can enjoy the vapors emitted by the food that is being cooked. You can soothe with the sense of taste. You can gently let a piece of candy melt in your mouth and notice that there are different flavors to it. So if you have a strawberry flavored candy, you can notice that there are some parts that are sour, some parts that are sweet. Notice the different textures and flavors that this candy gives. Have a good dessert and savor that dessert. When you are eating that good dessert, eat it slowly and then savor all the flavors. Be happy when you are eating. Eat your favorite food mindfully. Soothing with the sense of touch. You can take a long, slow shower. If you are concerned about water bills, you can take a slow shower during your free time. You can gently put on lotion. Some people enjoy wrapping themselves with a blanket or petting your cat and dog. That is a very soothing activity. Petting your cat and dog. And there is research that suggests that Pets can bring us much joy and it can ease out tensions. We can sit in our comfortable chair or wear a comfortable shirt. If, for example, you will be working hard, it would be good for you if you like to soothe with a sense of touch to wear some comfortable clothing. And when you're having a difficult time, remember that touch of fabric across your skin. You can also change your bed sheets and enjoy the freshly changed bed sheets. It is very soothing to sleep on freshly changed bed sheets. You can also engage in mindfulness activities. We have guided imagery, mindful eating, we all know praying, meditation, and body scan. You can engage in these activities in order for you to be relaxed. It is also important to build resilience during these times. In this article in Psychology Today by Dr. Michael Unger, he talks about 12 ways to maintain mental health during the pandemic. What are these? Next, you build resilience. How do you build resilience? First, you maintain structure. If you wake up at 5 a.m., wake up at 5 a.m. If you work from 8 to 5, work from 8 to 5. Whatever things you are doing before the pandemic, you have to continue them. Next is to be accountable. You take care of a pet, or if pets are not allowed, you could do other responsibilities. Be accountable for something. Kids can own a pet, kids can be responsible for a household chore. If you are a parent, be a good parent and be the best parent there is. Invest energy in intimate relationships. Spend time with your spouse, spend time with your significant other, and your family. Nurture social connections with your friends or other family members who are not with you. You could have a lot of messenger calls, Viber calls, Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, and whatever. You can have a lot of calls using your cell phones, and there are promo plans. You could also do multiple calls at the same time. Remember that there are also calls that have promo. Next is you strengthen different parts of yourself. Build on skills. It is very much necessary to build on skills because who knows, the hobby that you have been honing since time immemorial can be a source of extra income. Maintain a sense of belonging. If your sense of belonging is strongly affiliated with your family, by all means do so. If, for example, the sense of belonging is in work, nurture this. Some students may have a sense of belonging inside your classroom. If you are a teacher listening right now, these students who have a sense of belonging in your class feel that your class is their family. So nurture them. We also look after our basic needs, and it's very much important that we get proper nutrition, exercise or movement, sunlight, and other activities. We have to sleep. And for example, when we are about to sleep, when it's sleeping time, we sleep, let's not use our gadgets. When we go to sleep, our phone should also go to sleep. Next is to stabilize finances. Today is not a time to spend a lot of money. You need to save money. And you need to save money because times are uncertain, and who knows, you might be able to make an investment in the future. Lastly, we maintain spirituality. Why do we maintain spirituality? When you have a deep sense of spirituality, that could be your source of strength. That could be your source of hope. That's why it's very much important for you, for everyone, to nurture that sense of spirituality. Next is to use coping statements. These are some examples. Right now, I have feelings I don't like. This will be over soon and then I will be fine. For now, I'm going to focus on doing something else around me. This too shall pass. The present moment is perfect even if I don't like what's happening. This will be over soon. Magsasawa rin ang problema sa akin. If life throws me bad cards, I will use these bad cards in order for me to make a winning streak. When life throws me problems, I will look at opportunities. During this pandemic, I will look for opportunities to earn money. These are some coping statements that you can have. It is also important that we further examine our thoughts. We should identify unhelpful thinking styles. Now, what are these? You might have engaged in one, two, three, or more of these unhelpful thinking styles. Let's take a look at them. You might have engaged in unhelpful thinking styles. Some of these might be emotional reasoning. You reason based on emotions, overgeneralizing, labeling. Sometimes we feel that we're stupid and we label ourselves that we are ugly, we are worth nothing, we are stupid, we will not have a good future. It seems to it that these negative labels are stamped on us. Sometimes we jump to conclusions, we magnify events, we engage in mental filters, we disqualify the positive, or we have all or nothing thinking. We could also have personalization and shoulds and musts. You can Google up these unhelpful thinking styles. There are plenty of them. You have to know what these unhelpful thinking styles are in order for you to avoid using them. When do these unhelpful thinking styles come into play? This is a simple worksheet. It is called the hot cross bun worksheet, and it is derived from this. You see, there is a real hot cross bun. But in the hot cross bun of cognitive behavior therapy, this refers to emotions, and these emotions could be quote unquote hot and unhelpful. These unhelpful thinking styles come into play in the hot cross bun. Let's say, for example, we have a given situation. Your friend met you when you were walking down the street. This friend who met you is really your BFF, your best friend. However, this friend did not talk to you. The friend did not even glance long. And instead of saying, hi, good morning, hello, that person just continued on walking. What would be your thoughts? Meron ba ako nagawang masama? Yumayabang na siya. Baka meron na siyang ibang nahanap na kaibigan. There would be accompanying feelings. You can feel angry, sad, dejected. You will also experience physical sensations. I feel that my blood pressure is rising because that person I helped a lot, and then when he saw me or she saw me, I was not even greeted. My goodness. There would be physical sensations happening. Sometimes the heart would pound hard. And there are also times wherein you could feel that your stomach has butterflies, etc. These would translate into behaviors. What would the behavior be? You could give the friend a silent treatment. You can have, oh, I will have another best friend. Or you could stay angry, shout at the friend, text the friend. So you can see that these have interactions with each other. The behaviors, thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations interact. and sometimes they interact because of an unhelpful thinking style. You have to check on the objectivity of the fact before you make any conclusions. If you further want to scrutinize the thought, you can put the thought on trial. This exercise is called thoughts on trial. You can list down evidences that support the thought, list down evidences that are against the thought, and decide which side wins. You have to literally write down the evidences. You can also maintain a thought journal and look at the unhelpful thinking styles that you have. You could list down the unhelpful thinking style, when it happened, the circumstances supporting it, the circumstances negating it, and what helpful thoughts can be used to replace these negative thoughts. We have finished discussing coping skills. Let us now discuss some distress tolerance skills. Distress tolerance helps us cope with a crisis without making things worse. Take note that these are only used during crisis situations. These are not used in everyday problem solving. What are distress tolerance goals? First is to survive a crisis situation without making the situation worse. It is to accept reality. You replace suffering and being stuck with ordinary pain and think of the possibility of moving forward. The goal of distress tolerance is for you to be free. You become free of satisfying the demands of your own desires, urges, and very intense emotions. When do you have a crisis? You have a crisis if something is highly stressful. There's a lot of stress involved. For example, you are quarreling with your spouse. That is a very stressful situation. You know that this is short term. Tomorrow or the next week, you and your spouse will get along well. And then it creates intense pressure to resolve the crisis now. Therefore, you have to use crisis management skills. You use these when you have intense pain that cannot be helped quickly. Let's go back to the previous example. You are having a verbal match with your spouse. There is intense pain here, but it cannot be helped quickly. The emotions cannot be soothed quickly. You want to act on your emotions. You want to beat up your spouse, for example, or you want to say very hurtful words. But if you do so, this will only make things worse. That's why you need to use crisis management skills. You tend to be overwhelmed and you need to stay skillful. Arousal can be very extreme, but the problems can't be solved immediately. What do you do if you have crisis? One technique is to have a safe space visualization. Where is this? You can close your eyes and think of your safe space. For example, you want to do some self-harm to yourself. What do you do? For safe space visualization, you could think of your favorite safe space. Where is this? Is this a theme park? Is this a beach? Is this a part of your room? Is this a fantasy place that you want to visit? Or a fantasy house that you intend to have in the future, your dream house? Where is it? Focus on the colors. What are these colors? Are they pastel? Are they bright? What are the colors that you see? Focus on these colors in your mind. What's the temperature? Is it cold? Is it hot? What are the things that you can find here? Where do you say stay in your safe place? What do you feel when you are in that safe place? You have to savor the moment. Another technique would be high intensity interval training or HIIT. These are exercises. These are intense exercises that you do only if you will do it for a short while. You have to do this because you are too angry, you are too sad, or you are too afraid. You can expend your body's stored up physical energy by running, walking fast, jumping, playing basketball, lifting weights, etc. Engage in intense exercise in order for you to take your mind off that anger, that propensity to self harm, or whatever negative thing that you would want to do to yourself or other people. You could also do opposite reaction. You could identify the emotion. Let's say, for example, I am extremely angry or I'm extremely sad. I feel so depressed. I feel so hopeless. What is this intense emotion? And then identify the action urge. I want to hit my spouse. I want to curse him or her. Or I want to cut myself. I can't feel anything and I want to localize the pain. So I will cut myself. What is the action urge? Do you intend to harm other people or harm yourself? Next, identify whether the action urge fits the facts of the situation. Remember, the facts of the situation and not facts of the emotion. Let's say, for example, if I will hit my spouse, did he or she do anything that bad to merit my hitting him or her? If, for example, I cut myself, is this going to solve the problem? If, for example, I hurt another person, would it fit the situation? Am I acting objectively? Am I being judgmental or non judgmental about the person? Remember, if your emotions and their urges don't fit the situation, then channel your inner quote unquote rebel and do the opposite of what that urge wants to do. For example, you want to hit somebody, you do the opposite action. So you stop and then you go to the other room, or you could engage yourself in watching funny movies. You could also, instead of hitting, you could exercise. Instead of you, for example, hurting yourself, you could focus on drawing. You could focus on hitting your pillows. You could focus on other chores. So do the opposite action. If the going gets tough, if you feel so overwhelmed that you have ideations on hurting yourself, killing other people, or hurting other people, it is very much important for you to have a safety plan. A safety plan can be written down on a notebook, or you can download a safety plan in the Android or Apple market. This is for free. What does the safety plan include? First, you have to identify warning signals. What are these? I haven't been sleeping for 1 week. I feel so overwhelmed already. I've been having a lot of problems and I haven't been sleeping well for a week. I have the urge to hurt myself. Or I feel so overwhelmed again. I felt this feeling before and I feel that I am so hopeless and out of control. The things that are happening to me are above me already. I don't think life is worth living already, and I plan to end it all. So these are warning signs that you have to identify. If you are a parent or a teacher or a guidance counselor, you can create this safety plan with your child, your student, or your client. Next, after identifying the warning signs, you have to identify the things and places that you can do or go to distract yourself. For example, some people might find household work soothing when they are already feeling overwhelmed. Some people would like to listen to music, and some people would like to pray or go to church and ask God for help. These are the things that they do to distract themselves and soothe themselves. What are the things that you can do to help yourself during this crisis situation? You have to identify these and write these down either in your app or in that notebook. Next, identify the people that you can call. Who are they? Name them. Are they your parents, your relatives, your brothers, sisters, your spouse, your significant other, your boyfriend, your girlfriend? Who are these? Your best friend? Who are these you can call? They can help you get out of danger. Lastly, you have to identify the reasons for living. It might be a dream, your parent, your best friend, a dream to get married, a dream to go to Disneyland, a dream to travel around the world. And yes, it can even be the reason for living is my pet. Sometimes people would feel that if they leave the world, their pet would be maltreated and their pet would be living a miserable life. So they would have their pet as their reason for living. This is accepted. In a safety plan, it is very much important that the person identifies the warning signs, the activities that they can do to distract themselves, the places they can go for distraction, the people they can call for support, and their reasons for living. In the discussion we had today, we have identified mental health and mental health issues. We have identified models that explain mental health issues. And then we identified coping and distress tolerance skills in order for us to address psychosocial concerns and some mental health concerns that are experienced in the pandemic. These skills can be applied in other crisis situations or in other situations where there is difficulty. It is hoped that you would learn to apply and use these skills regularly in order for you to enhance your coping skills and distress tolerance skills. Hopefully, with the skills learned, you would be able to improve your mental health. With that, I thank you and I open the floor to questions. Thank you very much. These are the references used. I now open the floor to the Q&A portion of this webinar. Okay, thank you very much. We are now in the Q&A section of this webinar. I have here a question from RC. The question reads, is it normal for a person to isolate himself or herself to not get the toxic vibes of the environment or other people? What is the implication of isolating themselves in the long run? So, if you are isolating yourself, quote unquote, from friends, from other people, it won't be helpful for you to remain in isolation. If you are isolating yourself when it comes to a relationship, I will be showing to you some coping styles and I will be listing down, I will be mentioning adaptive and maladaptive coping styles. So when it comes to coping, when it comes to relationships or relationships at home or with a significant person, there are adaptive and maladaptive coping styles. Adaptive coping can involve active coping. So you are actively talking about problems or issues that you might be having, and you might be um, sometimes isolating yourself, but eventually you will be talking about the issues and concerns that you have with the person. There's also surrender. So when you surrender, it can be an adaptive coping style because you choose the battles. If you are, for example, cooped up with the same person for months because of quarantine restrictions, surrender would entail you fighting only the battles that you will be fighting. You choose the battles that you will be engaging in. And when you engage, you are always mindful of the situation. You are mindful of the things that you are thinking about, and you are mindful of your actions. These are adaptive coping styles. For maladaptive, you have passivity or you have avoidance. Avoidance is a maladaptive coping style. Why? You don't solve the problem. You just go away. The problem is still there. So avoidance and passive coping are maladaptive coping styles. And then there's over control, that you micromanage everything. This is a maladaptive coping styles. These responses are called from the work of a psychotherapist. She's a psychiatrist, Dr. Tracy Marks. Okay, there's another question here from Bernie. Despite best efforts, you still find and feel helpless, afraid, and not feel and always feeling negative. Can you kindly share self-care strategies to reduce stress triggers and anxiety due to unhelpful thinking styles, especially with young adults? Well, I have shared their techniques and I have shared the stress tolerance skills. You could also, aside from having your self-care, it is also in the literature. You could read this from the science lab from Yale University. Exercise would help you. They say that there are studies that a 30-minute exercise is equivalent to one tablet of Zoloft. Zoloft is an antidepressant. So exercise and then eating healthy and then getting enough sleep. And then also have the thought journal, do thoughts on trial. And then if there is really dysfunction, for example, you can't go to work anymore, you can't study anymore if you are a student, or you are suffering from anhedonia, you dislike doing pleasurable activities already, this is a sign that you might be needing to see a professional involved in mental health. You could seek a guidance counselor, a psychologist, or a psychiatrist in order for you to address these issues. There's a question here from Miss Rona. What is your suggested response to the message from a third-year college student? I want to apologize for not participating in class activities. I'm really having a hard time since the situation I'm living is very stressful and anxiety provoking. It makes me develop mental health concerns. I want to rest. I will not finish this academic year. Kindly remove my name from your list. So, Miss Rona, I think it would be best for you to know the situation that your student is in. What is it that is making the life of this student difficult? You have to talk and identify the concerns first. And then you have to identify difficulties. Let the student identify the difficulties he or she is having in class. And then, if for example, there are signs of suicidal ideation, it would be best for you to contact your guidance counselor, your psychologist, or to have some discussion with a psychiatrist or other mental health professionals. I have here incomplete information, Ms. Rona, because I only see here a letter that from a student that suggests that there is stress and anxiety. I think it would be best for you to talk to the person first in order for you to identify where the stress and where the anxiety is coming from. There's another question. I have a deaf to student that has a traumatic experience when she was in elementary. I can see her having depression. What can we say to her to push her in answering her modules? Okay, first and foremost, PTSD is not the same as depression, though people who have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder can develop depression in the long run. So for this issue, you can seek the support of a guidance counselor, or you could seek the support of a psychologist or anyone who is in psychotherapy, and identify the stressors, the stuck points that the student has with the traumatic experience. And then for motivation in answering her modules, I think that we have to identify where the problem is coming from. Is the problem coming from not understanding the modules? Is the problem coming from lack of motivation to study? So we have to motivate that student to study. Sometimes it can be, oh, the traumatic experience makes me feel that I'm worth nothing at all. So we have to address how the person thinks and how the person perceives himself or herself. It would be best to build on self-esteem if this is the issue. So there's another question from Patricia. Can one really self-analyze what is wrong? Isn't it better to be guided by a professional? There are some things that you can analyze. For example, if you have a personal problem, you can analyze the situation. But for example, if you will self-diagnose, you will walk around saying that, oh, I have bipolar disorder because I see that on social media. Or, oh, that person I think has bipolar. And then there are wrong symptoms being manifested. Or some people would tell me, you know what? I have depression. I am very worried. So I would ask, the key feature for depression is sadness, and the key feature of anxiety is worry. Sometimes people walk around and self-diagnose or diagnose other people. In instances of identifying a specific disorder, it would be very much prudent for you to seek a professional. So there's a question here from John. Is it the point of distress tolerance learning to be okay with feeling uncomfortable with emotions? If so, doing healthy coping techniques to push the emotion away seems to be doing the opposite. Okay, I have distinguished distress tolerance from coping. So if you have a problem, you use coping styles. If you have distress tolerance, this is not to solve your life problems, as I have said. This is not for you to identify the reasons for the meaning of life, the definition of life and death. Distress tolerance skills are only used during crisis situations. For example, you want to cut yourself. You want to jump off the building. You want to argue with your spouse. These are crisis situations, and these situations are temporary. You address these distress first before you proceed with counseling. Because if you are under heightened emotions, nothing that your counselor will say or nothing that your friends will say will ever soothe you. So you have to, number one, you can walk away from the situation. Number two, you can use immediately your soothing strategies. Number three, there's a technique called stop. If, for example, you intend to self-harm or you intend to harm other people, S means to stop, literally to stop. You don't think about it, you freeze. T is to take a step back. So you take a step back of the situation. You can literally take a step back. And then O is to observe. You observe your surroundings. You observe the colors, whatever the number of things there are in your house. You start naming objects. You start counting objects. And then P is to proceed mindfully. Remember that the stress tolerance skills are only used for crisis situations. These are not used for problems of everyday living. You have counseling after that situation has elapsed. Okay, thank you very much. So from Rosendo, may I ask how we could classify mental health and what are the appropriate coping mechanisms to address this as mental health? I think that the question is incomplete. So how would we classify mental health? We go by WHO standards and appropriate coping mechanisms for mental health. Mental health is not just the absence or presence of any mental health disorders. It has a wide array of definitions, and there's a lot to mental health, so I cannot answer that question. Perhaps you could ask me on Messenger or give me an email, etc., in order for me to answer that question. So what about students burdened with pregnancy? Students hide it because it makes her anxious most of the time. Well, if you are pregnant, you cannot hide the situation for long. It would be best to talk to the family because you need a lot of family therapy to address these issues. From Tina, if the teacher said he or she is having an anxiety attack and is not attending classes assigned to him, what can we suggest? First and foremost, for anxiety, a very effective technique would be breathing exercises, and this is in the literature. I have suggested their breathing apps, and there are breathing exercises on YouTube. And then, if there is an anxiety, and the situation really cannot be handled, it would be best for the teacher to contact already a professional to help him or her solve that anxiety issue. Question from Yvette. I have a 16-year-old student posting in her group chat that he wanted to end his life. I talked to his mom, and his mom just told me that he was joking. We take suicide for granted. In the event that a student tells you that he or she is suicidal, the first step is to inform the parent or the nearest of kin. There is no confidentiality when it comes to suicide. That is a standard protocol when handling suicide issues. You have to inform the parent or inform the nearest of kin if there is no parent anymore. And then you have to investigate on why the student is saying that he or she wants to end his life. Possible questions for suicide risk assessment would be the following. You have the eyes of suicidality. First, identify the ideation. Oh, I have thoughts of committing suicide. And then the intent and immediacy. I intend to commit suicide now. In fact, I have bought muriatic acid, I have bought silver cleaner, I have a rope. And then you also look at impulsivity. All the three eyes might not be present, but if a student is highly impulsive, suicide might happen. So you have to address suicide issues with immediacy, and you have to talk and counsel the student. Why are you saying this? Why are you saying that you want to end your life? So you have to investigate on this. So from Mariela, what's the best thing to do or say to a student who acknowledges that he or she has a lot of issues to deal but would not like to open it up to anyone because she thinks that she cannot handle the emotional stress that it will bring? Thank you. Some students don't verbalize. Some students could express to you via an artwork. Some students would draw the problem to you. Some students, I even had a student that danced to me the problem. So there are a lot of ways of expressing the problem. And then you could also give self-help materials to the student. You could make this a class discussion in values education or in homeroom. You could have different issues and concerns and identify problem solving strategies. Okay? People have different problems and different coping capabilities. So why do group cuttings occur among young people nowadays? So for group cutting, perhaps they have thought about it, and there are a lot of reasons for group cuttings. Individual cuttings, the reasons might be I want it as an escape, I am too numb, I want to localize the pain is everywhere, and in order for me to have a pain in one area only, I will cut, for example, my wrist. And that would make me feel more human because I feel the pain only in the wrist and I don't feel it in the head, in the heart, I don't feel it in my soul. So that would be the reasons for individualized cutting. For group cutting, sometimes I would ask people, they are just emo about it. So there are a lot of reasons for cutting. It would be best for you to ask if ever you know people who group cut. From Ian, how can we really motivate students who came from 7 months or more of lockdown doing nothing and now they are asked to answer their modules? You should be having some resilience topics in your revitalized homeroom guidance program. Talk about motivation, talk about what makes them happy, and you encourage them to do one activity every week that they really like in order for them to feel that they are still enjoying their life. You can Google up 101 things to do, 101 pleasurable things to do. There are pleasurable to-do lists online that could be given. And you could ask them to do one activity that they like every day or every week. From Glenn, how about those who were affected by calamities such as earthquake, typhoon, to the poor and remote regions despite COVID pandemic? How will we help learners, especially in the lowest level years like kinder? Okay, so when it comes to the context of calamity, we have a thing called psychological first aid. This is given primarily when there are calamities that are happening. So first is to have psychological first aid, because the PFA responder, take note that the PFA responders are usually lay people and they are trained to triage concerns. So what would be the needs? If the need would be, for example, food, uh, COVID tests, jobs, so they would be triaging and giving these people to the appropriate professionals. If, for example, the PFA service provider thinks that, oh, this person has to be under advanced psychiatric care or acute psychiatric care, this is the time when they refer to other professionals. So when it comes to the typhoons and earthquakes, there is a thing called psychological first aid. And then how would you motivate them? Number one, you address first the problems, the physical problems. And then if ever you have to link them to social work or other services. It is normal for people who have undergone calamities to feel sad for quite some time, but if it is already interfering, let's say, for example, a month has passed, 2 months have passed, and the person is still passive, and then there's a warning sign that the person is not talking anymore or is fighting, is quarreling, that would be the time to refer a person to a professional. So from Saruja, what is the best way to do if you are a school head having a teacher pretending to know everything with mental health problems? So, well, I think that is an attitude problem more than a mental health problem. So, you have to ask, what is it in a specific situation? I think that the question is incomplete, so I could not answer that fully. Are there more questions? You can still type in your answers. I will entertain one or two more questions because we are running out of time. So I think that there are no more questions. So to end this session, I would say that mental health has to be enhanced. There is no health without mental health. Hopefully, with the distress tolerance and coping strategies or skills that were discussed to you, you would be able to apply this in your professional life as a teacher. You would be able to apply these skills to yourself or to your children. Okay? It is always best for you to seek professional help if there is a great amount of dysfunction already. So with that, I thank you for joining today's session, and see you again this Friday for another session in this webinar series. Thank you very much and have a safe and meaningful day.